Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano, and for episode 102, we're talking about maximizing opportunities. First, seeing the opportunity. Second, then seizing that opportunity. We will talk about this concept with our guest, Jeff Proctor. Jeff is somebody I've known for more than 20 years. We met when I was at the Oakland Raiders, and he was a television executive in Southern California. We worked to bring Raider football to LA. Since then, Jeff has created his own production company along with his partner, Steve Rangel. He has also created a game show called Person, Place, or Thing, which airs on Fox. It's in its second season. Jeff was a pitcher at Georgetown University, and he's taken that commitment to his craft, that ability to deal with adversity, that resilience into his career to have a lot of success. He's teaching now at Syracuse University as an adjunct, teaching sports television production. He ran broadcasting operations for the world's largest sporting event back in 2015, the Special Olympics World Summer Games in Los Angeles. So much to talk about with Jeff. I'm so glad you're with us. The conversation begins now on Keep the Line Moving. Jeff Proctor, how are you, my friend?
I am great, Chris.
We're both in higher education. As you know, part of this podcast, it's leadership, life, and inspiration. So I'm going to throw this at you, and I was looking forward to asking you this because it's all in line with being a college athlete, having success in your career, and where you are now as you look back at your journey. Someone asked me, and I'm going to now ask you, how do you inspire people?
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things that I've stressed over and over again, just going back to the students, and I'd say also with my kids, and then talking to people that work for me or work with me, is something that I like to call the kindergarten rules. And to me, those are the things that you learn in kindergarten that are frankly so important as you get older. And that's showing up on time, being nice to people, doing what you're asked to do, and just being kind of a good person and getting along with people. If you can accomplish those things, it's kind of half the battle. I mean, everybody likes to work with people that you like to work with. So if you're good at what you do, and hopefully I am, but if you're good at what you do and you show up on time and you're nice to people and you're someone who people like to be around, it's pretty frankly inspirational. I mean, look, Chris, we're in a career that so many of our friends look at us and go, oh my God, that's the greatest thing in the world. How do I get a career in sports? And to me, if you can find your way in and do all of the things that I've just described, you have a pretty good opportunity to stick around for a while. And to me, the inspiration part of it, to kind of make a long answer even longer, the inspirational part of it is to show people that you work with how much you like what you're doing, and therefore hopefully inspire them to want to do the same thing.
Well said, Jeff. And let's look at this. So you've had a lot of success. Those Emmys over your shoulder are not an accident.
Not as many as the ones behind you.
All right. But KCAL, KCBS, Fox Sports coming up, being directly affiliated with the Clippers, the Lakers, the Angels. I don't know if you did. You probably have done stuff with the Dodgers and everybody, right? And you had prominent leadership roles facilitating live broadcasts or news coverage, sports news coverage. You had the full gamut. I know your roles. We've known each other almost 25 years. So you look at those complex roles based on just how you talked about inspiration and the kindergarten roles. I love it. Being on time, being a good person, just caring about people, right? In the overall. How did you manifest your personal kindergarten rules as a leader? Because let's be honest, then that's what this podcast is about as well, as leadership and helping people in similar situations. It's hard to lead and maintain that credibility, that accountability, that kindness. But I've seen you in action exhibiting those values. How did you do it, Jeff?
It's funny, some of the questions that you're asking me manifest themselves in the class that I teach. And that is, number one, being prepared. When you're prepared for something, it's so much easier to react in a positive way. The more you can go into something knowing that what you're doing, the better off you're going to be. When I came up in sports television, there was very much of a yelling and screaming culture. You would go into a production truck, and producers and directors oftentimes denigrated the underlings, spoke down to them, treated them poorly. Very similar to kind of sports culture in some respects that probably you and I were used to when we were playing high school and we were the underclassmen to the older kids. And that culture kind of permeated itself into production trucks. It no longer exists today, really, I don't think. And to me, if you're prepared and if you adhere to your own kind of moral code of treating people nicely, I tend to think that whether it's on the baseball field or the basketball court or the football field or a production truck or a network office or a team office, people are much more likely to follow you if you're prepared and you're nice to them. So I think it's not something that I really give a ton of thought to. I think it's just kind of my authentic person. I hope it's my authentic person, that you end up being a nice person, a non-yeller and screamer who is prepared and knows what he's talking about. And therefore one might be a little bit more inclined to follow what I'm asking them to do.
And you mentioned that you get asked similar type questions from your students at Syracuse. How impressive are the students at Syracuse? Because I could speak for the students in NYU. They're inquisitive. They want to learn. They're not married to their phones. Yes, and when they're out in society and walking down Fifth Avenue, sure, they are. But when they're in the classroom, they're all in, and they ask good questions, and they're learners. What are the students like in your initial semester of teaching?
They're great kids. They if they're going to Syracuse to get into sports television broadcasting, they're doing something right to begin with. And it's one of the things that I talk to them about, that if they follow those kindergarten rules and they have the combination of a Syracuse degree in sports broadcasting, life's going to be pretty good for them, I think, going forward, because to be doing what they're doing at Syracuse, they truly care about what they're doing. And to your point about your NYU kids and now my Syracuse kids, they are completely motivated. And look, as 20-year-olds, I have a 26-year-old son and a 29-year-old daughter, and I'm lucky that they too are motivated. So, when I think you're alluding to some criticisms of younger kids today, maybe not being as motivated, that's not an experience that I've ever really had. I have my class, I have my kids. You mentioned Georgetown baseball. I got to speak to this year's Georgetown baseball team a couple of weeks ago. 10 alums had a Zoom call with the current class of Georgetown's baseball team, and kind of gave them career advice and spoke to them. And the next morning I had 14 or 15 new LinkedIn requests from current baseball players who are smart enough to know that if there is someone who is willing to help them, that they're willing to take you up on that offer.
That's great.
Yeah.
So throughout your career, you've had a lot of different stages, right? Like all of us had. One of the key stages of your career was in 2005 when you and your friend Steve Rangel started ProAngle Media.
Yeah.
What was that like? And I've talked to you about this, but let's share with the folks. What was the catalyst moment where you looked at Steve and you said, hey, buddy, let's start this. There's a need here, and we have what it takes to make this go.
Well, actually, it was a lot simpler than that. I had been the vice president in charge of sports at the CBS affiliate here in Los Angeles, KCAL and KCBS. It's a duopoly, two stations under one banner. And we were in a staff meeting one day. And at the time, we were responsible for producing the Dodgers and Lakers games on the over-the-air station in town. And the financial part of that arrangement with the Dodgers and Lakers was a good one for the stations. They were making pretty good money, but because the rights fee was going up and because both of those contracts were being renewed, the margins for the station went down from, let's say, 30% to about 10%. So it was a pretty significant financial hit. And our head of finance walked into a staff meeting one day and said, look, if we don't figure out how to make this more profitable for the station, New York, CBS, the parent company in New York, was going to replace the entire staff in LA with someone who could make better margins on the sports product. At that point, my boss, who was the station manager, a guy named Pat McClanahan, who you know, turned to me, and Pat's been a mentor of mine for a long time. Basically, I always talk about how he continued to get promotions and created vacuums that I ended up being lucky enough to fill as I followed in his footsteps along the way. And he was always someone who kind of looked out for my best interests. And as that head of finance mentioned that we were in a bit of a financial problem at KCBS, Pat passed me a note and said, now is the time for us to eliminate the sports department at KCAL KCBS, eliminate your job, you go start your own production company, and we'll just outsource the sporting events to you. And it was as simple as me saying, that sounds like a good idea. And it required a little bit more bureaucracy and paperwork to make that happen. New York had to sign off on it. And our general manager, Don Corsini, another really influential figure in my career, signed off on it. And it became that simple. The sports department was disbanded at CBS, at least the live sports production department was disbanded. I was asked to start my own production company, and which basically left me doing an identical job to what I'd been doing at CBS. I didn't really want to deal with the financial part of the job. So I reached out to Steve. I had been the best man in his wedding. When I was at Fox, I was the executive producer in charge of production, and he had been the CFO. So I knew he was capable of handling the financial part of the business. And at the time, he was the general manager at Staples Center working on AEG Teleworks, which was the production arm at Staples Center. So I called him and I said, hey, you want to start a production company with me? I've got these contracts with KCAL and KCBS, and we can partner together and basically create a business. And Proctor and Wrangle became ProAngle. And that was about 19 years ago now, if you can believe it.
And then 2015, right, Jeff, was your big signature moment with major events. Tell everybody about that and the Special Olympics and what a wonderful endeavor that was.
So I mentioned Pat McClanahan, who was the station manager at KCAL KCBS. Pat left that job to go become the president of the Special Olympics World Games. He created the bid with the International Olympic Committee and got the bid to bring the event to Southern California. It was the world's largest sporting event in 2015, and it was the Special Olympics World Games that had athletes from all over the world. I continued at ProAngle, but Steve and I spoke about it, and I ended up kind of splitting my time for about a year and a half, where I was the senior vice president of production or broadcasting for the World Games, and oversaw all of the production that went on. And we had a relationship with ESPN, and it was just an amazing experience. I have a nephew with Down syndrome, and I've been involved with Special Olympics from the production side of things, going back more than 20 years now. Maybe one of the Emmys behind me is a part of that experience. I've won a couple of Emmys for putting together documentaries on Southern California Special Olympics Games. And it's something that I was really happy and passionate to be a part of. My daughter ended up working for the games. My wife and son ended up volunteering for the games. And it was just a great, great experience. And you felt like you were really doing something good.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing that. So your career has been wide and varied, and we've talked about, leadership and inspiration. Now let's talk about some creativity, which required all of that, inspiration and leadership. Not every day someone can create a game show. So tell folks,
crazy.
It is crazy.
It is.
How, where did this come from? This is like, this is your life kind of question and answer today and conversation with your bud here. But how did this come about?
It's funny, when COVID hit, all sports went away too. So we really had nothing to do at ProAngle. And I kind of viewed what was obviously a really bad situation, not only financially and from a career standpoint, but from a world health standpoint, as a bit of an opportunity. And because of that, I kind of thought to myself, what can I do creatively that will occupy my time and potentially be something that could turn into something? Who knows? And I came up with basically the idea for playing 20 questions. You ask yes or no questions to figure out to figure out a person, a place, and a thing. And to get to the end of it, the name of the game show that now airs syndicated around the country is called Person, Place, or Thing. It's on like 196 television stations around the country. We just got picked up for a second year. Fox first run, and a guy named Stephen Brown greenlit the project a couple of years ago. It's hosted by a woman named Melissa Peterman, who is fantastic and frankly makes the show. For those of you in Los Angeles, it's on at 2 o'clock on weekdays in LA on Channel 11, but you can go to the website, I think it's Person, Place, or Thing or something like that, and find out where it is in your market. But it was just a simple game of asking yes or no questions to figure out a person, place, or thing. And when I brought the idea home to my wife and son, they kind of looked at me and nodded and smiled and walked into the next room together and said, "That is the dumbest idea I have ever heard." Which is good not to surround yourself with sycophants, because I certainly do not have sycophants at my house. They are there to give me the straight dope on what they like and what they don't like. Thankfully, and they were probably right. It was a dumb idea at first, but I ended up kind of, making it a little bit more complex. I worked with a friend of mine named Beto Duran, and we made it kind of a sports version of 20 questions. Got a bunch of friends in the sports business to play it. We were doing it on Facebook Live. A friend of mine named Paul Franklin, who has since partnered with me on the game show, used to be the president of syndication at both Fox and at CBS. And he said, "Look, if you get this away from sports, you may have something there." And I said, "You think we can sell this? I'll give you half of it." And the two of us partnered with it. He got us those meetings and relationships with the Fox folks. Long story short, they did not pick it up the first time, did not pick it up the second time, did pick it up the third time, and now here we are today, and it's thriving. So yeah, it really is crazy. I never thought that would be something that I'd do, and yet it's so much fun, and it's so much fun to be a part of.
And I've seen it. It's very entertaining. And you're right. Your host is tremendous. She's awesome. She has tremendous energy. Speaking of, let's look at this. So you look at the meeting when you converted into ProAngle, the genesis there from Pat, right? Slipping you the note saying, "Hey, here's something here. Let's take care of the rights by having an independent production company, and we're going to disband, take the sports department out, but here's an opportunity," right? And you took advantage of that. And then you just said with the story of the game show, you got rejected once, twice, 3 times, but you were persevering. What was that in you, Jeff, that kept you going? Because we talk about that a lot, dealing with adversity. You wanted to get this project greenlit. What about you kept you in the game?
I think we all have that inner voice that sits there and at least asks the question, is what you're doing really that good? I have that inner voice all the time, questioning whether or not what I'm doing is really good. But I think I've come to the point in my career where I at least believe that that ideas that are worth pushing more than once. As a college baseball player, Chris, you remember the spin move that a pitcher makes when he's trying to pick a guy off second base, where he lifts his front leg and he just kind of does a spin and throws to second to try to pick the guy off. That was my favorite move as a pitcher. And everyone thought it was the dumbest move in the world. And my view about that pickoff play is that if it works once out of 1,000 times, that's one fewer out that I have to get at the plate. I don't care how many times I've got to do it, but if it works once, that's good enough for me. And I think that's kind of the way that I carry these pitches or these ideas or these schemes from time to time that I have. And that is, all you need is one person to buy into the vision that you have. So whether it's a game show, whether it's starting a production company, whether it's another type of show that you want to develop, or just an idea, if you put in the work, you prepare yourself, you put together something that might be compelling. It can't just be an idea, because everybody's got an idea. Everybody goes, "Oh, I thought about that same thing." Well, then why didn't you put it on paper, and why didn't you shoot a pilot and see if you could make it happen? It requires some time, it requires some money, it requires some perseverance. But if you have those things and you have the belief, I'm willing to be rejected 999 times for that one chance of someone actually accepting it. And I think that does set people apart from time to time. There are not that many people that are willing to deal with the kind of rejection that frankly I've come to expect, because I believe in some of the things that I'm doing enough to be willing to withstand that rejection to find the acceptance.
Where do you think you got that quality?
I don't know. I mean, look, I've got, I talked about my wife not being a sycophant. I think she pushes me really well. I mean, we've been married almost 32 years now, and she's much smarter than I am. Lisa's an attorney, and she's very methodical in the way that she thinks. I've got a really supportive couple of kids at 29 and 26. Truly, they are the ones pushing me to do the kind of things that I'm doing now, like a game show. But the idea of doing things that maybe are not expected, that, you talked about having kind of a bunch of different timelines in your career. I don't think that we are beholden to doing things. And you're a perfect example of that too. I don't think we're beholden to going across a linear timeline of what expectations are. If there's something that's interesting that you want to do, go do it. Whether it's teaching at NYU, whether it's doing a podcast, whether it's working for the Jets, working for the Raiders, or going out and starting your own leadership company, right? I mean, those are not necessarily normal pathways. And I think you have to be a little bit entrepreneurial in order to pursue those things. And I don't know exactly where that came from, but I do know that I like being entrepreneurial more than I like working for a company.
Me too. And this is a commonality that we have in our personalities that I think that we've always really gotten along. I always admired you that you started ProAngle. I used to tell you that. I always said, that's awesome. And I was fascinated with your business structure and everything. And I love Steve, a very good guy, very smart, perfect compliment to you. And I always enjoyed working with both of you. And I'll tell you this. Here's my philosophy with it. Why not me? Or in the case for you, why not you, right? There's so many people that do so many great things in this world. And I think this is a Steve Jobs quote or thought, which is they're not that much smarter or they have more initiative than you. They're just people like you. So I always felt that, right? That's in the broadcasting career. I used to make this joke. People are going to roll their eyes that know me. Back before the internet, I had more rejection letters. I could have wallpapered like 4 houses. And I probably still have, my mom probably still has all those rejection letters, right? And I just never believed, why not? I'm okay. I could be okay at this. Let's just keep going, just keep going.
Well, I'm also a believer in, I think probably my favorite quote, you're quoting Steve Jobs. I think my favorite quote is, at least in my mind, it's attributed to Branch Rickey. And that is, luck is the residue of design, right? Luck is the residue of design. So, the more planned out you are, the luckier you become. And, whether it's talking about Pat McClanahan or me being lucky enough to find the wife that I did, lucky enough to have the kids that I have, lucky enough to have Pat and people look out for me the way that they did in my career. You certainly have to take advantage of that luck, but luck is a big part of it. I've talked about my son a little bit. He was a really good baseball player. He played at the University of Georgia, played at the University of Michigan. He was probably going to be drafted coming out of college, but he had shoulder surgery and never found his fastball again after having shoulder surgery. And it's like, you not only have to be good, you not only have to be, physically gifted, you not only have to be talented and everything else, you have to be lucky and injury free. And if one of those things doesn't happen, it might, derail a potential career. But then you have a choice. You can kind of look back on things and go, "What, God, poor me," or you can find something else that really motivates you. I think one of the things I talk to my students about is, if it's raining outside, you have a choice on how you want to react to that. You can go, "Oh my God, it's raining," or you can go, "Hey, it's raining," and ultimately the rain's going to stay the same. It's how you react to it. And I think you and I, based on where we are in our lives and what we've done in our careers, hopefully we react to those rainy days as opportunities as opposed to maybe I stay inside.
All right, here we go, my friend. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Number 1, how do you deal with adversity?
I think you use it as an opportunity. I mean, Pat McClanahan, again, to go back to him, said that our job was not necessarily to be a producer or to be an executive producer or whatever else. It was to be a problem solver. And that's kind of the way I look at adversity, as a way to solve a problem.
2, how do you give yourself fuel?
I love what I do. I don't think that's ever really a problem. I have not really been a disciplined person in my life. I didn't think. I didn't like getting up in mornings, and now I walk 5 miles every morning. I found discipline helps with motivation, and therefore maybe gives me some fuel.
3, never give up. What do those 3 words mean to you?
Exactly that. There is always an opportunity. You just haven't found it. So if you have something that you believe in, you'll find somebody who believes in it as well. Just keep going.
The value of collaboration.
It's one of the things that I probably hold most dear. I mean, I would not be where I am were it not for people that made a point of believing in me and wanting me to succeed. And that's the way I feel with my students, with my employees, with people that I work with my partners. I want everybody that I work with to succeed, and I want to give back. So working with people, I never need the credit. I would much rather have someone else go out and get the credit, frankly. I just want the job to be done and be done well. And I love the idea. Look, you and I are a perfect example of that. We've known each other, like you said, 25 years. All we do is root for each other. I want people to succeed. So collaboration is kind of an intrinsic part of what I do on a daily basis, hopefully.
Hiring people. You've done a lot of that over the years, whether it's for a crew or at KCAL, KCBS or whatever. Hiring people. What do you look for in an ideal candidate?
Yeah, I'd say smart certainly is one of them. I care less about a resume than I do about what we talked about earlier when you talked about your students at NYU, and that is people that are passionate.
Describe yourself as a leader in 1 sentence.
I guess I'd say I'm a leader in the sense that I want to build other leaders.
And lastly, what is the difference, and I ask this to most guests when it's applicable, the difference between a manager and a leader?
I think a manager is a title and a leader is something you earned. As a manager, anyone can be given that title, really. But as a leader, it's someone that you're willing to believe in. And the hope is that only through experience and through the things that you're actually doing can you become a leader.
Jeff, fantastic. This has been great. Thank you.
It's awesome. And I can't thank you enough for having me on. And I'm so proud of you for doing what you're doing with this podcast and everything that you're doing with your career too.
And we thank Jeff very much for being on the show. For those of you that listen and watch the podcast on a regular basis, you know exactly where I'm going with the takeaways this week, right? It's the kindergarten rules. But how do they affect business practices or being in school and getting good grades and things of that nature? Basically, what are the kindergarten rules that Jeff brought up, right? How do they lead to success? Well, throughout our conversation, Jeff and I just talked about it, but let's reinforce it here with the takeaways. So let's look at this. Kindergarten rules. Number 1, be on time. Number 2, be nice. Number 3, do what you are asked to do. And number 4, be a good person. So let's break these down. Be on time. That means go to a meeting not at 5:08, but at 4:55, right? Be nice. Well, let's frame that a little bit more advanced. Be kind. Have a difficult conversation. If you're kind, you could say whatever it is that you want if it's framed in a caring way, right? Jeff also said, number 3, do what you're asked to do. That's the Bill Belichick notion of do your job, right? Don't worry about what's over there, what's over here. Do your job and collaborate by being able to do what you say and say what you do. And number 4, right, is be somebody people want to be around. It's pretty simple. People follow leaders who they want to be around. It's energy, enthusiasm, however you show it, right? I'm so glad Jeff brought these kindergarten rules to our attention. The simple approach usually is the best approach, leading to business success or academic success or on-field success. So I'm glad that Jeff brought up the kindergarten rules and everything else he brought up in his conversation. And we wish him all the best with his game show, Person, Place, or Thing, and everything else that Jeff Proctor is behind. And thank you, everybody, for being part of Keep the Line Moving. Please like, subscribe, recommend the podcast. We appreciate it. Take care. Have a great week on Keep the Line Moving. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.